All right, good afternoon, committee. Welcome. Glad to have everybody part of the Insurance and Pension Committee. We will call that to order. Today, we'll go through just introductions of ourselves, introductions of our staff and partners. And I think the switch I want you to hit is on that second panel all the way up. Keep going. That one. That'd be great. And then just flip the others all up and we'll be good. And eventually that door will close after you did it. So you got it. Thank you. And if I knew where the right switches were. But anyway, so excited to get to work on it. We'll actually start with our own introductions. So we'll go around the table and interested in a little, if you have some background in insurance or pensions in particular and wish to share that, that is great. I'll start. I'm Stephen Johnson from Central Kansas. I have been in the legislature 10 years, which is longer than I thought they'd let me be here. And done some work with pensions in the private sector and with the Capers reform here, and somewhat familiar with insurance. I've been life and health licensed since 1988, but I don't go deep in all of the different risk categories, but just generally in managing risk. So I look forward to learning more about the policies. I haven't been on the insurance committee since my first term, so glad to be back with that part of it. So with that, I'll start. If you will go around and through the other room and back up this way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Cindy Niebuhr, and I represent the 18th District, which is in Shawnee. I have served on insurance ever since I've been in the House, and that's about 10 years, but I was in, then I was out, and then I came back in, but I've consistently been on insurance during that time. I'm the ranking member at this time, and it's a pleasure to work with our chairman and our vice chair. I have a lot of background in insurance, being a retired medical administrator. I've worked a lot with medical insurance, dental insurance. My daughter's in the insurance world. My dad was in the insurance world. So I hope I have a clear understanding after 10 years, but there's always something new that pops up, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I think we have a lot to do, and let's get to work.
Good afternoon. My name is Gail Finney, and I serve the 84th District in Northeast Wichita. And I've been on this committee, I've been here 13 years, and I've been on and off this committee for a long time. I've sold insurance, and I buy a lot of insurance. That's about my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Vic Miller. I serve the 58th District, which is right here in the heart of the city of Topeka. Welcome all my out-of-town friends to Topeka, and I take my role as one of the hosts of our legislature very seriously, and if there's anything I can do to facilitate issues you may have within the city of Topeka, I'd be happy to play that role. Don't have any particular background in insurance. I've never been on this committee before. I have had the benefit, along with you, Mr. Chairman, of serving in the interim committee for pensions these last 2 years. That's a very important issue for people in my district, given the high percentage of public employees that are both working here and retired. I appreciate being on the committee. Thank you.
Chuck Smith from Pittsburgh, Kansas. I was a school teacher for 40 plus years, a coach for 40 plus years. I've been in insurance for most of my adult life. And I really have had a real keen interest in capers. So I'm really glad to be on this committee. And I think Mr. Johnson's a great leader. So really glad to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stephen Howe. I'm a representative from the 71st District, which is East Salina in Saline County. I just finished last Friday teaching 5th graders. And so I have a lot to learn here as a freshman in this committee. So I appreciate your indulgence.
Thank you. Thanks to all the committee members. I think we'll jump across the room and then come back. So Representative Collins, if you'll start us off, and then Representative Proctor and around the table, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Representative Ken Collins. I represent the 2nd District, which is down in southeast Kansas. And I was on this committee last term, and I'm back. And I am a licensed property casualty and life and health agent. However, I've never worked in that field, so I've never sold a policy. But I do have the licenses, so I have done some study on the some research on the subject.
Representative Pat Proctor. I serve the people of Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth as a representative. I am a retired military officer. I spent 25 years in the Army, just retired 2 years ago. I'm also a small business owner. Me and my wife own a chain of Thai restaurants and some properties, so I'm a avid consumer of insurance products. And then I'm also a professor in Homeland Security at Wichita State, so I'm also a CAPERS beneficiary in that capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Garber from Sabetha. I represent the 62nd District, which is Brown and Nemaha County and parts of Atchison and Jackson. This is my 11th year in the legislature. I've never been on this committee. I don't have any experience with insurance other than buying it and dealing with the problems. So I'm anxious to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill Riley, 80th District, which is the southern half of Cali County, southern half of Sumner County. In a previous lifetime, I had insurance licenses for life, health, auto, whole range of stuff, boiler. Since then, I haven't kept my license up. That was a long time ago. So I do have some little background in the knowledge of insurance. I still have a small business, so I pay my fair share. And I was on this committee last year, and insurance and CAPERS is interesting to me also because I am a retired school teacher, and so therefore I am honored to be a retired CAPERS person and very interested in the future of what's going on with the CAPERS program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jesse Borjan, representing the 52nd District, which is in southwest Shawnee County here in Topeka. I am a small business owner, also worked in state government prior to that for about 15 years, so am a CAPERS member, but otherwise no specific experience.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Emil Berquist, District 91. North end of Wichita and Keachai, Mays, Park City, and Valley Center. I am 42 years in aircraft in one company, came here, and I was also in city government for 16 years as a council and mayor, so I dealt with CAPERS issues quite a bit. Don't have any professional experience in insurance, but looking forward to serving in both capacities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Elizabeth Bishop. I represent District 88, which is in southeast Wichita, down towards McConnell and Cessna and Spirit and so forth. I did not have any direct experience with insurance, but I was elected for the first time in 2016 and started serving in 2017, and I've been on the insurance committee right along all through that, and I serve on the NCSL Insurance Task Force. In a previous life, I served as an aide to a U.S. congressman, and my area of expertise for that was insurance and pensions. So I have some familiarity, of course, with PBGC, the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corp, and some of the federal programs and the Department of Labor, Impact, et cetera. So I enjoy serving on insurance. I've learned an awful lot, and I look forward to working with the committee.
Thank you. We'll come back into our room and move to Representative Toplicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, John Topliker, Olathe. And this is my third year dealing with pensions, being on the Financial Institutions and Pensions Committee last term. So I have a little bit of that experience, and my 13th session in the legislature. So I had a stint earlier in the 90s up to 2002, and then I came back last term. So, but I served 2 years on the Olathe City Council and Johnson County Commission. I was there for 10 years. And so back again, glad to be here, Mr. Chairman. I hope to be able to contribute. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Dodson, 37 years in the Army, 12 years with Bechtel Corporation. Most of my experience with insurance and pensions in those jobs was essentially through contracting mechanisms. Had some experience with a couple of large nonprofits as well. And then, of course, on the Manhattan City Commission and as mayor, was very interested, as most people are, in capers and also commercial insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Chris Croft. I represent District 8, Overland Park and Olathe. This is my second term in the House and my first on this committee. I have 30 years of military experience, not quite what he has, but 30, and some nonprofit experience as well. However, like was mentioned earlier, I have no experience in selling insurance, but I do have a lot of experience in buying it. So.
Thank you, committee. Before we move to the important introductions, which will be our staff team, I'd like to step for a moment to the item of bill introductions. I see at least one person who I know is here for that reason, and to commute his sentence and maybe anyone else's who is just here for bill introductions. If it's all right with the committee, if I see no objection, we will move to that. We will go back to this item for other bill introductions for those of us that will be here for the remainder of the time, but I would recognize Representative Epley for bill introductions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mean to take you out of your normal course of business, sir, but I appreciate it. You know, we all think we're very important with our agendas, but I love hearing about everybody's backgrounds and what they bring to the table. So, but with that, I just have two bills to bring before this committee today for their consideration to add to their docket. And the first is, for lack of a better term, it's called PANDAS, and this is a resolution from your good old Health and Human Services Interim Committee here in the House this year. We pass this over to you for your consideration to develop a test track pursuant to the State Health Employee Plan for payment of treatments for PANS and PANDAS. And we would, I know we would like to have a robust discussion with your committee about what that is. I'm sure you can't wait to hear about PANS and PANDAS and everything else, and then the treatments that follow. The other bill, and that number is 21 RS 0356. Second bill introduction, Mr. Chairman, is again, state track health employee plan for tobacco cessation therapy to pay for that, whatever costs are involved with that. It's still a little nebulous in my mind, but we have drafted a tentative bill for that. And the number for that, Mr. Chairman, is 21 RS 0454. And thank you for indulging me to let me jump in here.
So thank you, Representative. And just if you'll hold with us for a moment, I know most of the committee members are very familiar with this, and most of the new committee members are by now. But in general, on the committee bill introductions, most bills we approve for introduction. I have not seen a bill that we have not, and we'll get into the details. If you have a burning question that you want to know, like I'm kind of curious exactly what PANS and PANDAS are, because I don't know what that stands for. So I actually will ask the representative that question. But normally I rarely ask a question. And the way I've handled it in committees is approving the bills for introduction if there is no objection. So if you have an objection to the bill introduction, be sure to make that known, and we will certainly recognize it, and you are more than welcome to, but for expediency, we'll usually enter the bills without objection. But I would ask, exactly what are PANS and PANDAS?
Well, thank you for the question. I'll try to be brief, but PAN stands for Pediatric Neuropsychiatric Syndrome, and then PANDA stands for Pediatric Acute Neurogenic Dysfunctional Syndrome related to post-streptococcal infections. And we'll leave it at that. Basically, it's a type of a post-infectious disease syndrome that causes acute neuropsychiatric syndromes and symptoms in children.
Thank you. You had a good hook with the acronym, and
I kind of lost it there, Chairman. I'm sorry.
I know a little more about it now than I did, so thank you. So we are happy to consider those. Committee, is there any objections? Seeing none, the bills will be considered introduced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
With that, is there anyone else who is here solely for the purpose of a bill introduction? I know we have some other bill introductions, and we'll get back to those shortly. But from that, I'll move on to our staff introductions. And I think I'll start right here in this room because I know she would like to be put on the spot. Jan, if you'd spend a moment telling us, your years of experience as a committee secretary and how all of this is second nature, that'd be great. And I would ask you to use the microphone.
My name is Jan Keel, and this is just my second year, my first year as a committee assistant, so he has a good sense of humor. I'm still learning lots, and hopefully I'll survive.
We're glad to have you with us, Jan. With that, if we'd move online to our Office of the Reviser.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I do. Thank you, David.
Yes, this is David Weiss with the Office of Reviser of Statutes. We are the agency responsible for the bill draft, so if you do have other bill requests to come before the committee, contact me or Eileen. She'll be introducing herself here shortly. This is my 11th session. I've done all 11 on some form of pensions committee. It's also my second go around on house insurance. I staffed that for about 6 years, took a little break, so now I'm back. But happy to be here and excited. Happy to help if anybody needs anything.
And I'm Eileen Ma from the Office of Reviser of Statutes, and this will be my 7th session. All 7 sessions, I've staffed some form of financial institutions and insurance. I've done all 7 sessions on the Senate side, and the majority of either one or the other on the House side. I also am a health revisor, and I am thrilled to be back.
Thank you. Excited to have the experience we have on the reviser team. Is there anyone else in the reviser office? Seeing none there, we will move to our research office, and I'll go to the other room. And Melissa, if you'll start us off there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Melissa Rennick, the Assistant Director for Research with KLRD. This is my start to my 19th session. I've had 17 sessions of experience with insurance issues and financial institutions issues, and I'm starting my 3rd biennium with pensions issues.
And Mr. Chair, this is Andrew Finzen, also with the Kansas Legislative Research Department. This is my first legislative session, so please be gentle with me. I have, prior to coming to KLRD, worked the previous 6 years in local government as a city manager, so I do have experience with pensions and insurance in a local government employer setting.
Thank you. And then Mr. Wu, are you with research as well?
Yes, I am.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Stephen Wu with Legislative Research. I have been with them since the 16th session, so it's been about 5-ish years. Most of my work is on the fiscal side. I have the responsibilities over the budget for CAPERS, in addition to covering some pension items on the fiscal side of the team. So if you have any questions regarding any of those, happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does that complete our research team that is in the meeting? I believe so. So thanks. Excited about the experience that you bring, even the new experience. So anyway, but appreciate the depth that we're lucky to have here on insurance and pensions. With that, I know we have a person who's helping us with technology. Very excited about that. Very needed. I am thrilled that the microphones are actually working today so we can hear each other. So thanks for the work to get there. I think I'll move to the insurance department. Lee, if you'll start us off.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lee Modestit, Government Affairs for the Insurance Department. Served in this role going into my third session. See familiar faces from committee, familiar faces from settings outside of that, and looking forward to session this year and hopefully being a resource for any sort of insurance questions you all may have.
Lee, I see that you're on the screen.
Were you able to hear me?
Go ahead, Lee.
Were you able to hear me the first time?
Yes, I could hear you well. I see Mandy is also connected. I wasn't sure if Mandy or Vicky were there to introduce themselves or not on the other side, and it's no worry. So,
sure. Vicky Schmidt, I'm the insurance commissioner. This is my third session as being a commissioner, and I welcome each of you, and I look forward to visiting with you in a few minutes.
thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. There's no one else at the department. Our other staff team is on CAPERS, and they are here in the meeting room. Alan, if you will take a moment along.
Good afternoon. Alan Conroy. I'm the Executive Director of CAPERS. I've been over there a little over 9 years, and before that, about not quite, a little less than 30 years with the Legislative Research Department. CAPERS, or pensions, was always one of my assigned areas through that time as well. So certainly glad to be a resource for the committee and provide any information that anybody would need.
Thank you. I think the 30 years started with a high school internship. Is that right? Grade school. Very good. Jared?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jared Waltner. I'm the Planning and Research Officer at CAPERS. I've been with CAPERS since 2012, and prior to that, I worked at the Legislature in the Legislative Research Department.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I have missed to take a moment? I think Andrew is our tech person, if I have my limited memory straight, so I don't necessarily need to put him on the spot unless he would like to be. But
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Representative Parker. I'm just wanted to say hello. I'm attending via WebEx.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry that I missed you before. Thank you
No
for speaking
problem.
up. And would you give us just a little bit of your background? We'll limit you to
Sure.
about 15 minutes or less. Thank you.
I think I can hit that mark. I'm Representative Brett Parker. I represent the 29th House District in Central Overland Park. I am in my third term. Was not on the Insurance Committee the last biennium, but was my first biennium. So glad to be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and thanks for making sure that I knew that you were there. I appreciate that. Any further introductions that I would have missed? Not, I am excited about the team, excited about getting to work with each of you, and look forward to the ideas that you bring that we need to address. To that, this is part of the challenge. I think we did a great job, actually. The mics worked. We turned them off when we're done because the camera will go to you if you happen to leave it on. And it moves on, it will continue to go back. If you're on the screen, I don't know what you do. Maybe you text one of your other friends on the computer to see if their phone buzzes so that you get off the screen. But anyway, hopefully that system will continue to serve us well. And again, if you're not in immediate eye shot, if you send a message via Representative Bergquist was going to try and help communicate with Representative Croft, since they both serve as vice chairs in this room setup. And so if you can flag them down in the rooms, if you can send a text to either the ranking or the vice chair, if I'm not catching things and you happen to have that information, great. I think it'll all work fairly well, but we'll learn through that together. So that's most of what I wanted to mention there. As we go through, I think WebEx will give us some flexibility in being able to attend meetings as we need. The intention that we do have is that votes will be able to be done on WebEx if you are in your office, or of course if you're here. So if you want to vote, be in your office. If you just call in to hear an informational and that's your choice, that would be possible. But we're looking at how do we deal with it, and our current plan is that voting would be in the Capitol. Other than that, I'm trying to remember if that was listed in the rules. It may well be, but the rules have been printed and are at your seats here. Representative Parker, if you want a copy of those, we'll make sure and get it to you. The only reason that we did print those is I wanted to make sure that you at least knew what they were. It's probably remarkably similar to most of your committees. But anyway, if anybody has questions, feel free to bring those up. And other than that, we are going to try going paperless. This is a learning for me as well. I think I have an inefficient way of pulling bills up through the Kansas Legislature site and testimony through the emails that I get from the committee assistants. So we'll see if there's a neater way to do that. If somebody has really learned CanFocus and you can bring me up to speed, that'll be great. But that's the direction we're going to attempt to go. We're thinking that will help with WebEx, and should we ever hit a period where we're even more remote than we are currently, that might allow us
almost all the cities. City of Wichita is large enough to have their own retirement system. Then you get to community colleges, and then kind of special purpose districts, maybe it's a drainage district or a township. But there's 1,500 employers that have affiliated with KPERS. We also have a KPERS 457 plan, which is the defined contribution plan. It's a separate plan, separate trust. It's all employee money. There's over $1 billion in that. State employees have the opportunity to participate in that. And then about a little over 300 local units of government have decided to also provide that 457 plan for their employees. And a lot have their own plan, which is great, but I think it's just important that employees have like a 457 type plan, that avenue to be able to help save towards their retirement. There's over 325,000 KPERS members. So really about 1 in every 10 Kansans has some connection to KPERS. Either a member, and then you get a spouse and dependents, but it certainly touches the lives of a lot of Kansans. And you can see on the active there's a graphic. There's about, of the 325,000, about 156,000 are active members. Largest group are school employees with over 89,000. Local units of government about a little over 38,000. The state 21,000, and judges and there's police and fire. The state of Kansas is the largest group or employer there, but you can see there's a lot of different employers that make up that 1,500, and there's over 100,000 retired members of KPERS, and about 85–90% of those remain in Kansas. We do have a few overseas, but most of the KPERS retirees remain in Kansas, and so that retirement benefit is paid to them circulates here in Kansas. You can see there on the right-hand side there how KPERS work. Of course, the legislature, you're all the ultimate or the plan sponsor, so you get to define the benefits, you decide the funding. Of course, we have an actuary that does lots of projections. The employers and employees make the contributions. We take that, invest that money over time, and then we're in a position to pay the promised benefits that they've earned. One kind of myth, fact kind of thing, KPERS is not like Social Security. Nothing's wrong with Social Security, but by plan design, it's sort of a pay-as-you-go system. So contributions come in from people actively working, employers and employees, and then those contributions go right back out to pay benefits to retired Social Security recipients. KPERS is not like that. Contributions come in, it's invested, and then over time, those investments build, and so that benefit that's paid out is pre-funded. The employees on the second page of that little handout contribute for KPERS members, it's 6%, KPNF is 7.15% of covered pay, and judges is 6% as well. The employer contribution is variable depending on the actuarial evaluation. The legislature has put a cap on that, but the great news is after 25 years, the state's contribution, which is also for the state pays the entire contribution for local school districts too, as a part of state aided education. It's at the actuarially required rate. So for 25 years, the actuary, the board said the contribution rate should be at a certain level, and the decision over time was to contribute less than that, and that difference then just rolled to that unfunded liability. Investments are a big part of our contribution of the trust fund. Roughly about half of it of income funding over time has been through investments. Employer contributions about a third, and then the balance is from the members themselves. The board assumes that over time, that portfolio, that $23 billion, will earn at least 7.75%, which on the higher side compared to other public pension plans. but our 25-year rate of return is above that. It's currently at 7.8%. Now I think we're a little higher above that. A lot of money goes out from Capers. About $1.8 billion a year goes out for retirement benefits, disability benefits, withdrawal benefits, and death benefits. So the average monthly benefit's about $1,300 on the Capers side. And after about 3 years, most retirees have been receiving more in total benefits than they paid in contributions, assuming there's no lump sum payment. The balance then would be investment earnings and those employer contributions. You can see Capers is governed by a 9-member board. Our newest trustee is the state treasurer, Lynn Rogers, and that's a statutory position on the board. So whichever state treasurer is a trustee, or appointed by the governor, one by the Speaker of the House, one by the President of the Senate, and then the members get to elect two, one on the school side, one on the non-school side. Each of the trustees serve for 4 years. So Capers touches a lot of lives. Trust fund of $23 billion. A lot of interaction with Kansans across the state. School groups, the largest group, and certainly as a Capers staff member, we do our best to try to serve our members and carry out that fiduciary responsibility. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to stop there at that point. See how you'd like to proceed.
Sounds great. So any questions on Capers at this point? And we'll do this more like an auction than a meeting. So I've got a couple callers. Yes, a bid. Good question. Representative Proctor. And I will repeat the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really educational for me, this question. That you talk about the municipalities and the smaller government organizations within Kansas that opt in to Capers. What's the cost for those municipalities above and beyond contributions and so forth?
Right. Other than just the logistical, or I guess the cost to the local units of government to affiliate with Capers, the main part is really just that annual employer contribution on their covered payroll. And for local units, it's a little over 8% are currently contributing. Employees would contribute that 6%. And then just the logistical support of payroll and sending us information and forwarding the contributions. So their human resources or personnel people spend time with us. But it's contribution would be about 8% for local units.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Bishop. Representative Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask about the proverbial question about Tacoma and where that stands and whether there's any chance or if it's sometime this century or.
Right. The question is about cost of living adjustment for retirees. And you make a good point. And you may know, but the last cost of living adjustment for retirees was authorized by the 2008 legislature. But at the time, you had to have been retired at least 10 years to qualify. So anybody that's retired since 1998 has not received a cost of living adjustment and the retirement benefit. They would continue they're currently receiving exactly the same dollar amount when they retired, in 1999 or whatever year it was. The Capers plan by design does not have a cost of living adjustment built into it. So that means it's not pre-funded. So that means then, and really it's a decision of the legislature to grant it. And so since it's not pre-funded, then there's depending on the size and the amount and all that, the cost of a cost of living adjustment can be sizable. Of course, it can be paid over 10 years. So on an actuarial basis, it would add to the unfunded liability and and then be reflected in higher employer contributions down the road. The legislative policy hasn't been done since no retirees received one since 1998. And so it gets back to that funding question. We can talk more, but our funded ratio is about 70% on a scale to 100. And so I think some policymakers, some of your predecessors, have thought about the cost of living adjustment and wondered about if you're going to add to that unfunded liability, what's that, when should that be done? But certainly there's a need out there, particularly for those people that have retired since 1999. We would add to the unfunded liability.
Thank you. Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, additional add-on question to that. I was one of those folks that received as a retired teacher that CAPERS program, and I remember when I signed on to that program, when I retired, that was an annuity program that was set up for me, and if I wanted to extend it on, also for my wife, I could extend it on. But it was a fixed annuity program, just like as if I would buy an insurance program. And so when I signed on to that, and let's just say that CAPERS was going to pay me $450 a month for the rest of my life and the rest of my wife's life, that is an annuity program that's fixed, and the actuary people, based on our perceived lifetimes, decide how much money that's going to cost. And so therefore, it would literally upset the apple basket or the cart by changing that whole plan of be like changing every insurance person in the state of Kansas, their annuity, and adding a cost of living, that by putting a cost of living onto my annuity, even though I would appreciate it, that money is going to have to come from all the people that are currently working, adding to their additional cost in order to pay for my cost of living increase. Is that a simple way of saying what you just said?
Well, to that point, it's not pre-funded, so it adds to the unfunded liability. And who pays the unfunded liability? The employers. So that employer contribution rate would have to be adjusted by whatever the design of the cost of living adjustment is. But it falls to the employers then to pay that.
Thank you, Alan. And going back to that main point, I guess I got it straight here, but the main thing is when I purchase on my retirement an annuity, that has to be understood that was a fixed income for a set period of time. That is the name of an annuity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And legislators, just by a good lifestyle, live a long time, just like school teachers. And so they have a long longevity. That's all factored in by that action.
Thank you. Representative Berquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Alan, for being here. Question, do you all also administrate Kansas Police and Fire?
Yes, that's right. Police and Fire and the judges system are also administered under the umbrella of CAPERS. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, committee? Seeing none at the moment. Alan, did you already go through the bills that we had coming out?
I didn't. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
You want to go back to insurance?
No, if we just go through the bills that came out, we would be, and we'll have a full report on the joint committee at a future meeting. But as we talked about bill introductions, there's a couple that won't be introduced, that will come directly if you just give us an overview. Even the one that went to the Senate.
Okay, very quickly then, I think there's a memo in your electronic information. The Joint Pensions Committee, and the chairman pointed out, legislative research staff will provide more information on those recommendations. But the Joint Committee did recommend 3 bills. One is a technical bill. I believe this is the one that's been referred to, the Senate. It relates to the federal coronavirus aid and relief economic security act, CARES Act. Some of you may have heard about that. And they, in that federal act, it made some changes, particularly related not to the KPERS basic retirement plan, but to that KPERS 457 or that defined contribution plan. And so the KPERS 457 plan, since it's approved by the IRS, bottom line is we have to keep Kansas statutes in line with the federal statutes. And now that federal statute has been changed or adjusted for the COVID-19 legislation. And so the Board of Trustees has recommended, requested, the Joint Committee has recommended that the KPERS statutes relating to KPERS 457, the defined contribution plan, also be adjusted to keep us in line with the IRS. And that's important for IRS compliance, to keep the tax treatment of KPERS 457 kosher. And so I think I call them the technical changes. There's a couple that don't really need to be done in 2024, but the board had requested, the Joint Committee agreed. They're going to go in to make some technical changes. Some need to be made now, some in a couple of years, that those would all be done at the same time. Then there's a second bill the Joint Committee recommended relates to police and fire death benefits. It's for active members. The bill would make some benefit changes to the surviving spouse, and it would allow then that surviving spouse either a monthly benefit equal to 50% of the member's final average salary, some additional adjustments for each dependent child up to 75%, and then if there's no dependent children, the member will receive when they retire. Currently, it's capped at 50% of the members, deceased members' disability benefit, and so this would be an enhancement. But since it's fortunately there's a small number of police and fire active deaths over the course of a year, the expectation is that there would not be a large actuarial cost or certainly an administrative cost. And then the last bill the Joint Committee recommended relates to the Deferred Retirement Option Program, referred to as the DROP program. Only applies to law enforcement in the Highway Patrol and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. So they're KPNF members. There's currently a pilot program going on that's set to expire in 2025. It allows the member and the employer, if they agree, to enter into an agreement, either 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, for that member to enter the DROP program. The retirement benefits frozen. They continue to work. They continue to make employee and employer contributions, and that monthly retirement benefit, rather than being paid to the individual, is held in an account that KPERS. And then at the end of that period, then they receive, at the end of the DROP period, they receive those accumulated retirement benefit contributions or payments they would have. This bill would just allow a member who originally decided to go for 3 years or 4 years to come back and say, okay, now I'm at the end of 3 years, I would really like to work another year or 2 years. Still a 5-year cap, but would allow the individual to extend their DROP program from whatever level they were at up to the 5-year level.
Thank you. Question from Representative Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are doing an awesome job of splitting your personality today. Alan, what the proposal on bill number 2 and bill number 3, did we not have those last year? Or are these a little fine tuning from the previous last year's?
The KPNF death benefit for survivors, there was a bill last year, it's identical to this bill, passed by the House. It was over the Senate committee. I think they're on the verge, I believe, of passing it, not to speak for the other chamber, but that was in March yet, and the clock just ran it.
Yeah, I just want to bring that up for the folks that are new to this committee, that we did do some work already in hearings on that. And then what about the third one on the, I thought we did that.
Program, I think that's a new twist to that. You know, in recent times, the legislature actually, it started out with just the highway patrol. It was a 5-year sunset program, and then it came back and the KBI was added to it. And now, and another 5-year sunset program was, so it's currently scheduled to expire in 2025 unless the legislature extends it or makes it permanent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan, on that death benefit, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is that just for service-connected death, or is that for non-service connected as well?
The provision this only applies to service connected. So, you know, you are correct there. It's only service connected.
And the follow-up, I was looking at this before I walked in here. I thought the cap was, it's 50% for the spouse and 10% for each kid up to 90%. Is that not the case?
Right now? Let's see, there was an adjustment made. That's a good question. It may be up to 90%. And I can't see my, maybe Jeff help.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
You are correct. It is 90% for an active a death from active service. This is for a death from disability. So it's a slightly different circumstance, but you are correct about that.
Okay. But most importantly, I'm not sure if it's a prize or a penalty when a new member of the committee and a new member of the legislature stuff that. That's pretty good. So, anyway.
Mr. Chairman, I literally just looked at this before. Totally random success, which is the only kind of success I have.
Are there other questions? Alan, I'll have one for later. I know you know the answer. I just don't want to get into hearing the bill. But on one where we go to 3, 4, or 5 years, I'd be curious if there's any additional cost to extend it within the drop program. And then
all right, but we'll be prepared to answer that.
Hey, virtual people, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So, Commissioner Schmidt, can you? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. And
So
it's so refreshing. Thank you.
we're having some technical difficulties with the rooms themselves. So we're hoping to get that ready for you guys.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to take a stab at trying to speakerphone and just see if we can get you close to the mic.
Yeah, I think that might be best.
Let's get it first.
So this laptop is connected to the meeting and it has input and output.
Let's give a shot at the speakerphone and see if it works. Ready to, and then we'll start by seeing if we can hear you. Yeah, that's great. So we'll have to probably turn that off and get feedback, but we want it to hear. So unfortunately, we're down, and that's the holdup. So the people who are listening on audio will be able to potentially hear you what we've got. Okay, that's our best shot at the moment. You know, if you have any, I think if you could go give us an idea of where you're headed, you better to pull that off and do that. And just give us a high level of the if that's possible. What do you think you want to do? Well, why don't we try yours, see how well it works. And if it works pretty good, she's going to stand by, that's great. And otherwise, they will be provided okay, great, great. Okay, I'm going to try it. So I'm going to change the speaker and turn the mic on and then see if we can hear you. So make some like talk about whatever you think of. I'd say talk about what they say maybe you can talk about the Chiefs. I don't know if you know anything about the Chiefs, but here you go. I am exactly asking you that. Speak up as best you can, and we'll see if it carries.
Is the audio working okay yet?
Able to hear the other room, any feedback? And then keep talking.
Okay. Chiefs, K-State, or are we good to go with bill introductions here?
Could we check our other folks listening online if they can hear? Yeah, we're good there. How about my President Parker? I think we're working.
Parker said yes.
Give us your best show. Lee, I'll be informal. And we're getting pretty informal here today. Well, go from there. Thank you.
Sure. I look forward to hopefully being in person here in a couple of weeks. So I appreciate the accommodation, Mr. Chair. I have 5 pieces of legislation that we would like to introduce from the committee and kind of take them from the top here and do all 5 and then see if folks have questions just for efficiency if that works for you.
Yes, that does. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Make sure I understood there. First one is RS 0386, which deals with an annual date change related to risk-based capital, something we have to do every year as part of accreditation. Second one is 0396. This is what we're referring to internally as our cleanup or operations bill. And it's 4 or 5 different little small things that kind of made sense to combine together into one piece of legislation. 0392 is our producer licensing bill. This deals with trying to modernize our producer licensing process and company appointment process. 0373 is securities victims restitution. Less than 7% of victims, less than 7% of folks who fall victim to securities fraud will actually see any level of recovery. So this is the establishment of a fund that would be administered by the Office of the Securities Commissioner, which is a division of our department. No tax dollars would be used for this program. And lastly is 0399, which is credit for reinsurance. This is the accreditation legislation and part of an agreement that was reached between the U.S. and EU.
Thank you. So there are 5 bills suggested with the RS numbers for introduction. Committee, are there questions on any of those? Is there any objection to those 5 bills? Seeing no objections, and Representative Neighbor, are there objections behind you that thank you. Seeing no objections, the bills will be considered introduced. So thank you for that overview. Appreciate that. Committee, we are going to be hearing a couple of those bills. The risk-based capital, which was the date change one. Again, it's always dangerous to say this is a simple bill, but this is more cut and dried issue of working through that. It is considered a technical bill. The other one is the producer licensing bill. So if you move those to kind of the top of what you look at as those come through, we do not yet have bill numbers. You will see an informational hearing listed for those on our next meeting, which is a week from today, since we don't meet on Monday. So it's listed as informational. As soon as we get those bill numbers that were turned in today, we will update the agenda, and the note that you'll get from Jan will have the numbers on it, so you can look them up and see what's in those bills. But that would be our agenda going forward on Wednesday. We did talk about it. We're lucky enough that the credit for the insurance bill is ready. We think our meeting might be short enough to add that bill, so watch for that. It will be in the update of the agenda. So just a bit of a heads up on that. I'll go deeper on our agenda as we close. But Lee, I'm going to give it, it's your call. Given kind of the challenges that we have, I would welcome other thoughts you wish to share. I welcome you to table that until next Wednesday to see if everything's working just perfectly by that.
We're fine with waiting to Wednesday. That works for me.
I think in light of being 4:05 at this point, that might be good so that we can ask a few more questions at that time. Thanks to you and the commissioner for standing by with us today. Sorry we're not able to get through that part in detail. Anything else you would want to share with us before we close with you today?
Good. I appreciate the time, and thanks for accommodations given the circumstances.
Yeah, and thank you the same. Committee, are there any burning questions for the insurance department before we let them go? Going once, going twice. All right. Hey, thanks very much, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Thanks, sir.
All right. Committee, with that, I'll just go through a couple of other things along that line. We had the bill introductions from the Department of Insurance, and I will reopen bill introductions for other bills we might wish to introduce. With that, Representative Neighbor.
So I'm standing here. This is, I believe it's RS 0330. It's addressing the mental health parity. We ordered the bill last year. There was a meeting during the summer. We did not address exactly what our request had been, but this has to do with payment for mental health services across state line or through insurance carriers. So I'd like to bring that back and forth. It's much needed during this COVID time with the number of the issues that we have with mental health.
Thank you. Committee questions? Is there an objection? Without objection, the bill is introduced. Thank you, Representative. Other introductions? Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce RS 0206, a bill providing membership in the KP&F retirement system for certain security officers of the Department of Corrections. What this bill will do in essence is for Group A members of corrections capers, which is almost exclusively the corrections officers. It would give the existing officers the ability to opt into the option to opt into KP&F, and for all new Group A employees, they would be enrolled in KP&F as opposed to corrections capers. So essentially, the effect of the bill would be to sunset the Group A corrections capers over time.
Thank you. Committee questions? Seeing none, is there an objection? Without objection, the bill is introduced. Thank you, Representative. Other introductions? Seeing none, we will have that on our upcoming meeting. So we've got a couple of weeks yet before we hit the first deadline in a non-exempt committee. We do have those deadlines to consider, but essentially we'll be meeting through February. So we've got to get our work done between now and that point in time. When you break it down to Mondays and Wednesdays, that goes fairly quickly, especially since we don't meet on the first couple of Mondays. So that pulls us to the Wednesdays and then our Monday Wednesdays as we get further in. Because Capers is here, they're going to draw the short straw. No, I'm just kidding. Tentatively, we're going to try and focus on pension work on Mondays and insurance work on Wednesdays. As we get further in, it'll probably be harder as we have bills that have to be heard and gotten through, but hopefully that helps us kind of compartmentalize on topics and go a little deeper as those issues come our way. And anyway, so with that, I mentioned this coming week where we only meet Wednesday. We'll now have some remarks from the commissioner that we didn't have today. We'll have those couple of hearings, maybe a third one, but get the first couple out of the way. The first one should be a good one for us to practice on with the date change on the risk-based capital. And then it'll get a little more detail from there. On the following Monday, so this is a week after Martin Luther King holiday, we're back on pensions. And our intention at that point is the two bills. So first we'll have an overview of what happened in the interim committee with research. We'll have an overview of the capers and funding status. We should have our year-end numbers by then. It'll be right in their board meeting time so we can get an update on where we are at year-end. And we'd like to hear the two bills that they mentioned from the joint committee. So that'll be a pretty full day on pensions. And then hopefully we can finish up with the Department of Insurance bills on that Wednesday. We'll be working to get all of the other things in, and we can get as many things heard as we have the time and energy to get to. And your input offline and in committee about what things will be our priorities will be very helpful as we work through that. So that's just a little bit of a lay of the land of how we go forward. Exactly how we do it, we're going to be figuring out. So that just sticks clearly. So thank you for your patience in working through that with us and each other today. Other questions for the good of the committee? Anything I managed to leave out, since I think I have papers spread across both rooms from the team? Seeing none, thank you.
Have a great weekend. Enjoy the long weekend and chats the rest up for the sprint that will start. And we're adjourned.